Hello and welcome to the Full Advisor Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Kristin Herod. And today I am joined by Bleeke Noël. She's the founder of Sales Pro Insider. Now, you may know her as a sales coach or a consultant or the creator of the Genuine Sales Training course, but she's spent decades helping advisors build skills and confidence to take prospects and turn them into clients. Nancy and I are kindred spirits in this work. We've kind of followed each other around for years, and we finally had the chance to really sit down and spend some time getting together. And while we might approach things from slightly different angles, I think that's really going to benefit you all as you're tuning in today. We're going to have a really exciting and rich conversation. And before we start, here's what we want you to think about. Your prospects rarely hire a financial advisor more than once, maybe twice in their lifetime, and they don't know how to do it. And most advisors are designing their sales process around their own preferences and not around what the buyer actually needs to feel confident enough to say yes. So today, Nancy and I are going to walk you through what it looks like if we flip that script and help you rethink everything with a different focus. Nancy, great to have you here.
I know, I'm so excited about this conversation and the way that we do have the kindred spirit around how we approach this, and that it's designing processes and the experience that really helps them get what they need to be confident in making the decision to work together, which is the goal.
Right. And I just love how you bring to the sales discussion the concept of putting in a process, putting that in place, because I think it does relieve a lot of stress for advisors, because they can follow the process versus getting caught up in the emotion, which is something I know I needed when I had my RAA, and I still love it today, knowing now, of course, skills are natural and it's not as nerve-wracking, but especially when you're uncomfortable or you're stepping into a role of doing business development or sales or having those conversations as a lead advisor, it can be scary. And I know when we were prepping for this session, you told me a great story that I think will really paint the picture of the value of the sales process. So I think we should start there, if that's okay.
Okay. So I believe what we were talking about is how the sales process starts before most people think it does. And there's always this merge, right? Marketing, and when marketing sales, how do they intersect? And I think they work alongside each other, from very early on. But when we think about the sales process, it's not when we start just having the conversation. It starts when they come into our world in whatever way that is. And so the example that I shared with is, as we're getting ready to guide and lead a sales conversation, everybody knows we're supposed to prepare. But what we don't often think about, or advisors don't think about, is what am I doing to help the prospect also be prepared? How do I help set it up and cue them up for success from before we even say hello, in real time, whether that's virtual or in person. And so the example I used is a firm out of Virginia that I worked with. And as we discussed this, they put together the process to help the prospect. And it even started with them queuing up the experience for when these people, their prospects, were coming to their office. And the instructions were so specific, starting with what part of the parking lot would be better to park in, and the doors to go in, and where the elevator was located, and that when they got off on the 5th floor, the restrooms were to the left, even though their office was to the right, and that when they opened the office door, that Teresa, the receptionist, would be sitting there with a smile on her face and an offer of coffee or water. They laid it all out so specifically that as the prospects did that, they kept getting comments like, it's exactly what you said it would be. And so I was like, it was all these little trust deposits along the way that they were following through on what they presented. And that is where the process really started.
I love the term trust deposit. It's like each little step from like pulling into that parking space and being like, the parking space is exactly where they said it would be. Oh my goodness, they're on the floor from the elevator that they said they'd be on. You'd think how obvious, but then, oh, I do want to use the restroom before I go in. Okay, I'll go right, not left. I think that all of that is just amazing. Like to know, oh, good, I'll be able to get some water or a coffee. And like all those little things that people may not realize are on their mind. But then it's like when you break it down to that small bit, and then to your point, and this is what I loved about what you said was, each time you deliver on those little mini promises, it's like you're building trust. Mm-hmm. So I think thinking about it to that level is, you know, beyond just something where you think, well, that's just being hospitable, right? But it's not. It's literally strategic and part of your sales process.
Yeah, and going up to, because I always ask advisors, do you think that some people, as they're going into the first conversation with you, are feeling any stress or discomfort or uncertainty? Like, try to remove that so they can show up more confident and ready to engage in the conversation, which is an information exchange that needs to happen. And not feel that this is this scary thing, scary people who may manipulate me, who may, you know, I might feel shame, I might... and just start removing that so that they can show up better.
I love that. That is so true. The uncertainty of the whole process and really breaking it down into those small bits where you can go, I know they're coming in nervous. And this gets back to the whole, you know, the whole point of this conversation today is people don't have that roadmap. People coming in often have never bought this service before. They've never hired an advisor, or if they're looking for a new advisor, it's because they've had such a bad experience or they're not getting what they need, that they're really in this spot of like, hey, I don't know how to buy this, so I'm already nervous. I have all of the media nonsense of like all the stories where it's gone bad. You know, it's when you can bring it up and be like, okay, here's some places where we can make it clear, make someone feel comfortable. Hey there, it's Kristin. Quick break. If you're enjoying the show and you want more, head on over to fulladvisorcoaching.com/resources. You can download the toolkits that I have there and join the free insider community. You'll be the first to hear about new trainings, fresh podcast episodes, and I share with you real-world strategies that I see working for advisors right now. That's fulladvisorcoaching.com/resources. Go sign up. It's completely free. And now, back to the show. Where else are you seeing what happens here? Like, what else are people doing?
You know, it's interesting because I was thinking of an advisor that actually was my advisor for many, many years before he retired. And he had said, especially, you have to think about your demographic, right? Do they know what to wear? That's a big deal for some people. I remember him saying about some older people, he goes, I don't think that people realize that for people who are retired, often after a bit of time, they getting to where they need to go is this big production. All week long, we're focused on Thursday at 10 o'clock being in this spot, right? And rather than sometimes they are exhausted from the emotion, the uncertainty, and the unknown, right? They show up exhausted, and then they're not as good of a place to have the conversation. But where else I see it start is even for virtual meetings, right? So that's physical, but even for virtual meetings, you know, I hear advisors say, gosh, you know, both of them weren't on Zoom, or they didn't turn their camera on, or whatever. And it's like, well, what did you do to set the expectation ahead of time? And so, you know, looking at, hey, this will be a video conference. So, you know, don't worry about lighting. but we will be on camera. And if we can see both of you, that's going to, really help. And hey, in the environment, we're going to be talking about, your serious financial things. So if you have people in your home who you don't want to hear those things, you might want to make arrangements to be in a private place. Some advisors are like, and hey, if you have kids or pet, let them climb on you. We don't care. Like whatever is the standard for the people that you work with. But just all of that, setting it up to take away some decisions is just really, really helpful.
Yeah, I really like that piece, especially the warning about like, hey, we're going to ask you questions, because I've been on calls with my advisor, Zoom. We're sitting at the kitchen table and my husband and I are squeezing both of our heads in because we want to both, because we're like, we can't be on two different computers in the same room. But then, we're talking and then we'll say right away, I mean, they did not set the expectation, but we're kind of aware enough to know, of course, we're going to be talking about these things. And we'll say, hey, just use the first digit of that number. We're like, hey, please don't say the total amount, out loud or something, in case she's walking by, or just reference the account and we'll know what you mean. Mm-hmm. Because I do think that that's something you forget. And then it, kind of opens up a whole different other conversation that someone may or may not be ready to have with a family member.
Or sometimes people are doing it from work, right? And they
might not have
in-head, earbuds and things. So yeah, just whatever you can do to just set expectations and help guide them. Whenever you make it easy for them, you make it easy for everybody, for yourself too. So
that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, make it easy, and then it's easy for you too.
You also are sort of setting, what I think is interesting especially when you outline a process ahead of time and take the time to break it down, is you're saying, hey, this is really important. And this is something we need to take seriously, and you're taking seriously, and we're taking it seriously too. And so I think it elevates the conversation and most likely the outcome, right? Mm-hmm. Because you've set the stage there.
Well, and I think that's something I'd like to hear your input on this too, so that's like laying out the experience. But the kicker here is when you can get clarity on what's the objective of your time together. And from the beginning, hey, during this conversation, people lay out agendas, but they don't often get clarity on a shared objective. So, at the end of this conversation, you'll have everything you need to decide if you want to take the next step, or the next step after this meeting would be this. And so we're going to get, but cue them up. So you're, again, releasing pressure of them feeling like, am I going to be sold to? Either this is going to be the decision meeting or it's not, but let them know so that, again, you're both working then an agenda or a plan to get to the objective. So love to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I actually think, you can take that all the way back to your marketing and what you're putting out on your website, right? Mm-hmm. And really backing preparing that person from the first time they ever interact with you, whether it's through content, and in your content, you're, somehow discussing the process or what it's like, or common questions or uncertainties, all the way through to when I come to your website as a prospect or as a suspect or someone shopping around. Do you say, hey, it's very simple. We have a 3-meeting process. We have a 2-meeting process, or here's what to expect in that first meeting. Is it built into those upfront communications that I as an advisor may not even know that you're looking, but you're learning along the way. So I bring it all the way back in the marketing so that people can start to learn and get past that uncertainty early, so they will actually schedule the meeting, right? The consultation or that first conversation.
What is it that I'm committing to if I'm scheduling time with you?
Yes. Yeah. And I think that the hurdle, of course, is always getting someone to click the schedule button, right? And get them to, or pick up the phone and call, which not as popular these days. But, and I think that's a kind of a whole different episode would be around like, what are you doing to let people get to know you before they schedule, like do you have a lead magnet free information in exchange for a name and email address so they can get on your list, so they can learn about you over, like get your emails and find out about you? And do you have a podcast or a video or a vlog or something where you're sharing content where they can get to know you? You're demystifying parts of what it's like to work with you, all before they ever have the motivation or trigger to click the schedule button. So I think you can't overlook all of that as part of the full ecosystem of business development, right?
And I think that's where, again, they merge, like there's that merge of them. So,
yes,
if you have expected people to have seen your website and what your process like is, that's great, but you can't, you don't know whether they have. Like people say, well, it's all on my web. My pricing was all on my website. I don't know.
Yes.
Well, do you know that they digested your website in detail, took notes? And if there's two people, did both of them do it or did just one? So again, that prepping them to show up, if you want them to look at that, again, I think it could be a barrier if you're like, now click on this and review this on my website. But hey, as you might have seen on the website, you can give them information ahead of time again, because they'll ignore it if they've seen it before.
Oh, yes. I think making the assumption that they read it is, you're looking for trouble if that's the case, because even someone who read it may not even remember. They don't know. They probably were looking at 3 different websites. So which one was yours? I'm not sure. I went and picked it. I read it, but my wife didn't read it. I had to drag her along. She didn't even really want to come. Or, my husband already thinks he knows stuff, so he didn't look, and it could be whatever that is. I think that's a really good point. Like, you can't, just because it's out there and that you send a link that's like, well, I sent you a link and you didn't look at it. I mean, I think that is important. I used to, when I had my RAA, I would send a printed welcome kit prior to the first meeting that was like in this beautiful oversized green envelope. You couldn't miss it. And it had like, here's the agenda, here's a little bit, here's what to expect, here's like some, the checklist of things you can bring, but you don't have to. And I will tell you, what you're saying is totally true. Sometimes they bring it in on, I didn't even open it yet, I just brought it. Other times, every detail filled in, reviewed, checked, they both filled out their sheets. Sometimes somewhere in between, someone going, yeah, I got this. I haven't read it yet, but I have it. And so you're like, all right, you cannot make the assumption on that front. So I think, to your point, the more you reiterate and say over and over again, this is how it works, this is going to happen. You have someone call and say, we're having our meeting tomorrow. We'll see you at 8:30. Okay. Yeah. I mean,
so
any of those
2 more
points
things on that is,
way.
if you're using like a Calendly or any, scheduling system, get out of the standard ones that are set. Like you can always, change those, personalize that reminder, from the subject line down, because people that have seen them before ignore them if they look like the standard. Make it fit your brand and all those things. Brooklyn FI, Shane Mason, AJ Ayers, that group, they really know who they're working with, how busy they are, whatever. Part of the prep is that they have to confirm that they have looked at certain things in advance, a video message and some other things, but they know their audience and to design the pre-process even more specifically to fit them and their busyness, and then keep the actual time with them shorter.
Oh, interesting. And I think it can work. And again, it's all about knowing who your audience is and designing the process for buying your service around the person to whom you are selling, right?
Exactly.
So I think that is fascinating to think about that. If they have a very busy clientele and they're like, look, we're going to make the most of the time. You got to make sure you watch this and come in, and we will keep it short and we will get you in and out and all of those different things. And and it's kind of counterintuitive, but if it fits the people, it fits the people, right?
Right. That they know their audience. Like that's
Yeah.
what I would say is that will not work for everybody, but they know their audience. Just like this other, firm, they know their ultra high net worth, country club clientele, and they work in handwritten notes, even to confirm an appointment, the first appointment. They set themselves different because they know that that's appreciated in who they're serving.
That's great. Now, when you think I know one of the things you help advisors with is kind of crafting the sales process. Like, what is it? One meeting? Is it two? Is it three? I find very interesting because most times what I see is, consultation, maybe 15-minute phone call. It could be 15-minute phone call, 30-minute phone call, or sometimes it's an hour, whatever the initial free thing is. And then there's potentially a second meeting where they're presenting a proposal, which is a whole nother thing about whether that makes sense or not. Or it's, okay, you'll come back and we'll have a deeper conversation. How do you approach that with your clients as they're designing that? Because that does get really confusing. And when we get into it from a marketing standpoint, I'm always stating it's really important that we have a clear process that you are able to explain to people, that you're able to share and present and have a visual and have them understand. But we also need to figure out, well, what does that look like?
Oh my gosh. It is like the age-old question. Should it be a 1 or a 2 meeting? And I'm like,
or 3. Yeah.
From a 1 to a 5, 5 meeting.
Wow.
The 5 meeting ultra high net worth clients, I mean, they design they put in so much work. It's over 30 hours of effort, but they know that once they get their prospects to that point, the probability of closing is really high and the revenue is really high, too. But so here's the thing is it's not one answer. It's who are you serving and what do they need to be confident in making a decision, right? That's how it has to be designed. So many sales processes are set up in how the advisor likes to operate. I hear it probably once a week. Well, I only want to have a 1 meeting close. Like, can I do that? And I'm like, sure, if they're ready for it.
If someone's going to actually say yes at the end.
And make a decision. And some people do. And I always say too, and whatever your process is will never override their process. Even if they don't know they have one, right? Because they are coming at it not knowing how to buy this. So they're coming in maybe thinking, I've got to kick the tires. I've got to right away start asking you, deep questions on, this and that. But it can be a 1 or 2 or 3. Aligned with, okay, so who do I serve? How do they make decisions? Going back to, are they busy people that are working? Are they people who have any financial know-how, right? Where they're coming in with different things. Are they someone who has to be completely educated from beginning to end? So you have to do it. And so how do you figure that out, right? That's, I think, the big thing. They're like, I don't know. Well, you need to talk to some of the people that have already made decisions. Did they make it in 1 or 2? And was that, how did that feel to them? What would they have, was there anything that could have been done in the first meeting that could have, been more helpful to them for making the next decision? But I always say, I think the safe spot is to start with a 2 meeting process, like design thinking that most people aren't going to make a decision if it's ongoing, AUM, big numbers. Typically, most people will not make a decision in that one first meeting, like on the spot.
I think that is a fair statement.
Okay.
Yes.
But some will. So that's the thing is you've got to be ready. Yeah. My process is set up. And sometimes they're like, hey, I was referred to, and then where did they come in the funnel from, right? If they're a warm referral, it can be definitely shorter. But if they're cold from online, they might be at a different place. So that leads into all the questions you need to ask them and all that. But back to the process itself. Your process has to very much be designed around getting them what they need, when they need it, in the way they need it for making whatever's the next step. And so that's that statement. One of the things that I have been seeing more and more of, and I know that there's some industry experts that are saying this is the way it must be, is that it needs to be 3 meetings because I need to give them a deliverable during the meeting. I need to do a 1-page plan or a mini plan or something like, I have to work that in. And I can say, that's not true. Like lots of people make decisions without that. And that I've seen advisors accept this information, even though their own conversions were really good, and now stretched out the process without any real gain. Like it did not get faster decisions. It did not get higher conversion rates. It just created more work for the advisor. So, but if you're working with, very, maybe analytical, skeptical people who need that, then maybe that's, maybe you need to have that as an offer. But I don't believe as a overall thing, like every advisor should do that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think to your point, it is about what is it that the person needs to be able to make a decision to move forward with you. And I know there's also some other people going, well, I don't want to give it all away before they actually hire me.
And they
where
shouldn't.
I'm like, they shouldn't, for sure. And I'm like, I think there's a lot of good advice you can give that still won't give it all away, right? You can still be generous in your advice. But I am curious about the actual mechanic, whether it's 1, 2, 3 meetings. I mean, the actual mechanics of, I know that one of the hardest things to do is to close a conversation. Like if someone isn't going, yes, well, great. Where do I sign? Like in that first meeting, well, I already knew Jim said you were great. I'm ready to sign. I don't really even need to hear in the normal process of, all right, I'm coming in, I'm having my first conversation with you. Maybe it's over the phone because we're doing a 15-minute screener qualifying call. If we break it down, how do you think about that in terms of setting the objective and then making, like, how do you end that so that you're opening the door for your follow-up? Because follow-up is key in all of these things.
Yeah. So if let's say it's going to be a 2-meeting process, right? And the first meeting is this initial phone, which is often with just one person. And if there's a 2-party person, right? Like then that person has to become your deputy salesperson to get their partner bought into
Right. Yes.
So now for that person, the person who wasn't in the first meeting, you're really again looking for a 1-meeting conversion because that's their right.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't often count any initial like discovery phone qualifying. It's part of the process, but I don't consider it in the meeting cadence.
That makes sense. And I think a lot of times as advisors get more established, the screener or qualifier call can be done by a more junior person or someone just getting their feet wet. So it's a way to be able to sort of, keep the lead advisor team or, the focused on qualified prospects where the other earlier in the process, it's like, well, we got to qualify them first. And so we can equip a lot of people can do that work by asking some simple questions. Well, I mean, I'm not saying it's necessarily the best, but it is I've seen it done well from some larger firms, and they do a really nice job on it. So,
all right. So there's also ways of qualifying. We could have a whole discussion on this. There's also ways of qualifying in pre-questionnaire, a few questions ahead of time, et cetera, to increase the possibility that they're qualified. But here's the thing, right? Qualified is also got to be behavioral, right? So there's things that you've got to be looking for of how they're going to be to work with. Their expectations and such as well. So let's assume
you've had conversation with one person.
Do they see enough in us, and do we see enough in them qualified that it's worth now this 45-minute, hour, 90-minute, whatever that next meeting is?
So the first official meeting in the process.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then, to me, the objective of that then is you've got to be clear on it. Sometimes it's, I want to learn I always call it their story, which includes probably less data and financial information than you would think, right? Because it's more about understanding their situation, what's going on, what the history is, what's coming up, tomorrow. But the key is the impact of those things, the risk and reward that's associated with what's right now and the future. That is where the value in your service lies, right? Is in that.
Right.
The stressors they want to relieve, the organization, etc. And then why, right? Is that causing them, ill effects, or is that something exciting that they want to work toward? And so, you can set it up that, hey, we're learning this. And at the end of this meeting, I'll be able to at least say, you know what? I am confident that what we do is going to help you with this, this, and this, the 3 key outcomes. And, in working with, like giving them a validation statement, this is right in our thing. Our next meeting then is going to be us, being able to make sure that we understand this and then align how we work, what we would do for you, and be able to share that information more specifically, right? So you're letting them know, I'm leaving them today with hope and belief that we are the right firm. And then I'm setting up. But then the key is, I say you have to give them an assignment between number 1 and number 2. Like if you leave the meeting with always the work to do, that is no sign of interest or engagement. So what can they do? But it has to be meaningful, right? It has to contribute an additive for your next conversation. So now at this time, would that be a good time? Like if you're comfortable, if you want to share some of your account statements or you want to share that, like give them something that they can do, which allows you, again, it's another test on their behavior of what they're going to be like to work with.
Right. Yes.
And so,
that's good.
But then it's getting specific. Well, which one of you will do that? By when? Letting them, how is it going to be done? Is it something they're going to upload in a secure portal? Is it something, get really clear with them in that next plan. And then your follow-up becomes a lot easier.
Right. Because then you know what you're asking about and who you're asking, and you can be specific versus the generic. So what do you think? It's much more specific on that. I'm curious, do you set at the front of the first meeting, where you're both with, say, a couple or, in that situation, do you recommend giving the high level overview of, here's how we do 3 meeting, here's what happens.
The process. Exactly. Because now you're sharing again, right? Which started in marketing, then was in the prep stuff, but now again, so, as this is a 3-step process and it's designed, you got to give them the benefit. It's designed to make sure you have what you need to be confident in each step along the way, because making this decision, is an important decision. And we know that, we can, we'll, most likely be good, but you've got to be confident in that decision. So you set that up and say, and so today, you remove the barrier of pressure. Today, at the end, together we'll make, decide whether the next, meeting in the process, is the best for you. Or I'll say, or you just say something like, and we'll together determine your next best step. Right?
That's good. I love that. And I like that. Yeah, this ties all back to they don't know how to buy, and you're telling them how they can buy, which I like, which is just that's kind of a different way of saying, like, I'm always saying, like, let's have a visual. Let's show them the flow, show them the process. And this is you're saying, hey, I'm hearing you, and we're here. We have a process so you can feel really good. And it's all about you getting what you need to be able to make the decision that's best for you. Mm-hmm. I know other people some advisors will be like, well, it's mutual. We have to see if they're right for us. And I was like, it's true. That is true.
So this is totally a little aside, but
okay.
When I listen to recordings, and I'm very fortunate, every week I get to listen to a minimum of 2, sometimes up to like 6 different recordings for people.
Wow.
And so I get to hear the stuff real time. And the amount of I and me from advisors at the beginning sometimes is just like, oh, flip that, please flip that, get to us and we, like, get away from I and me, right? I like to schedule these meetings to blank. My process, blank. Our process, like as a firm, blank. the process we're going to go through together. Like the more you start,
I like that.
you're on this journey together. And that's why my approach is collaboration, and that's doing it together. Like, yes, I'm guiding and I do know more about finances than them, but I don't know more about them than they do. There are things they know more than I do. I also don't know what level of knowledge and experience they have unless I ask the right questions as well. And the number of times that I'm blown away that it gets all the way to the end, and then the prospect says, well, we're talking to a few other firms. How was that not discovered earlier, right? Through question. The advisor didn't ask and they didn't offer.
Right. That is very key. I imagine that should be something right up front, like how are you going, how is the process going for you?
How are you guys approaching making that decision like this, or selecting the advisory that, the advisor you're going to work with? Like, we need to ask those things early, not in the first 5 minutes, but in the short term.
Right. Yeah, I think even overtly, I don't know, I'll be curious to hear what you say about this, but overtly saying, this can be a tricky situation or difficult process. I don't know if you want to call it a difficult process, but something like this is not. I always like to say it's not like buying shoes, right? You don't just pick a pair and maybe you can return them, right? It's like it's a big decision, and there are a lot of factors and things to come into play, and you've worked really hard to earn your money and save your money. And so you do have to make sure you find the right fit. So I don't know how much you call that out, but I think calling out that it's okay that they don't know.
Right. But then set themselves up as the guide to help them. I always say, be the translator. Hey, you are talking to other firms. You know what? That's wise. And, as you talk to different people, different terminology, different languages used for things, I would be happy when you're done with those conversations to be your translator, whether you decide to work with me or not. Like, it's, really important for you to make this decision. And then sometimes people will say, well, why would you do that? Well, you know what? Because whether you choose to work with me or not, if you have a good experience, I may be right for someone else in the future, right? You set that up.
Yeah, that's good. I love that.
Even just personally, one of my like highlights in all these years was when a president of a firm, when I let them know I wasn't the right consultant for them, put his hands on his chair and said, I want my people to do what you just did, to be confident enough to do that. And he became a really good referral source over the next year, even though I didn't work with them.
Oh, that's great.
So
right.
And
I think it's good to call that out. And you know what? I'm sure you see this too from all of the advisors who end up trying, looking for marketing help and business development coaching and sales coaching. They are people who want to give, right? Who want to help. And so sometimes that gets in the way of getting to a close, right? A close, air quotes, close, because they're trying to help and they feel uncomfortable and kind of strange. But so it usually comes off authentically when they're like, well, I just want you to make sure you find the right person.
Yes.
And this is a very important decision. Yet it does, it's two-sided coin there, because it can also, when you're really compassionate and giving and helpful, it can be hard to get to that end of the conversation where you're saying, so are we moving forward? So let's say we're through the 3-meeting process, or you're in meeting X, the last one, right, of your meetings. How do you come to that comfortable close? Like, well, it's coming.
Yeah.
What do you recommend there?
Well, I call it the consolidation, right, instead of the close, because you're not closing, you're opening a relationship, hopefully. So the consolidation, right, means bring together. So we've just had these discussions, right, over 2 or 3 meetings, and now it's, okay, you know what? In our time together, here's the key things that we've learned are important to you. And we discussed how we would be able to work with you and address those things. And so, what are your, I call it a readiness check. What are your thoughts or your final questions around this, right? We've discussed along the way.
I like that.
So you're helping them realize, we're coming toward the end. I should have and sometimes they're going to give you a concern. Sometimes they're going to give you a question. But what you're looking for is opinion, right? You're looking for opinions, feelings, thoughts, etc. And often that will lead them to saying, yeah, I think we're ready to go. Or like, what's going to be our next step if we want to work with you? Like they'll take you there. But if they don't, right? This is when you don't want to end it with, well, let me know what you think, right? You guys want to reach out to me?
Yes, yeah, that is the worst.
The assumption.
You don't have. It's hard to work with that as the provider, as the service provider. It's hard to work with. Let me know what you think, because then when you want to follow up, you don't know what to call back.
You're following up to, right? So that's a whole other thing. So then, okay, so you check for readiness, and then if you believe they're ready, there's no more final questions. You say, and that didn't lead them to telling you their decision. Then you say something like, well, I know that I am, looking forward, to being able to, help you, serve you, whatever, in these ways, because I'm confident, right? You got to show them that I'm confident that we're going to accomplish. And then this is the key. Outcomes, not process.
I was going to say, bring the 3 outcomes back from that first meeting.
Exactly. We are not talking about, again, we're going to meet 6 times then this next year. That's not what they're buying. What we're going to do is we're going to get you organized like you want to be. We're going to make sure you have the information to make that retirement date decision. You get to the 2 or the 3 really compelling things, and then you just pause. Yeah. Let that sink in, because you're bringing them back to what's most important. And then if that still doesn't have them say, yes, what do I do next? Then you have to ask. And you don't have to say, so are we going to work together? You could say, would you, are you, ready to sign the services agreement? Are you ready to schedule our first implementation meeting? But it's specific that them saying yes is moving forward, right?
Right.
Do you want to buy?
Yes.
We don't say that in financial services, but that is how you get there.
Yes, that makes sense. And then at the point if someone says, well, we actually want, we want to step away and talk about it, classic, or, well, we want to sleep on it. What I would normally say there is just say, great, I want you to feel really confident in making this decision. Is it okay with you if I reach out to you, on Tuesday and we can, figure out the next step? Or I want them to sign the papers, but now so that's a tough one.
I'm going to piggyback, because where you're going is exactly what I would recommend too. But so if they're going to they say, hey, we need time now to think about this or to talk about it together, because right in front of you, and that same thing, right? That's understandable, right? And instead of saying, I want you to be comfortable, you need to be comfortable, right? Make it about them.
Yes, good language. Yes,
you need to be comfortable. And so, about when do you think you two will have the time to have that discussion? Right? So ask them for you're getting timing from them without asking them for time. And let's say they say, you know what, we're getting a long car drive this weekend. I'm sure we'll discuss it then. That's great. Now, when you're having that discussion, what's going to be helpful for you to reference? Because we've talked about so many things in our time together. Oh, okay. You have notes. Okay. You've got you've got the outline. Okay, great. All right. So, then would it make sense, or my suggestion would be, let's get time on the calendar, even 15 minutes for next Tuesday, because you're likely going to have a question or two. And instead of us then getting into email, let's just get time on the calendar where then you can ask me it, and that's going to help keep you on that path to get this decision made that's been important to you. And so you're getting them to that confirmation of a time to talk to you. Now, if they say, I don't really want to get, we might not have the conversation, right? That's then, okay, well then, as a next step, what is the timing that would be ideal for us to reconnect? And if they, again, don't want to, they'll give you a week or 2 weeks. Oh, we're still talking to other advisors. It's going to be 4 weeks, whatever. All right. Well, then, if your offer is going to be, can I reach out to you, right? It's got to be specific. And which one of you, do I send it as a message to both of you? Would you prefer a phone call, a text, or an email? Like, get the specific plan. Because if they're still squirming at that, they might be trying to get out of it, right? And that's what
right, yes.
You can say, and hey, if you decide that I'm not the right person, we're not the right firm for you, please know we won't be offended. And, we'll be grateful that you've made a decision and let us know. Like, give them permission to tell you no.
Yeah, that's good. And you only really bring that up if there's kind of like keep pushing you off and pushing you off and pushing you off, right? Because you don't want to offer that up too soon, I would think.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. That's good. That part always gets strange, and I see a lot of advisors get uncomfortable about it, and then it does throw off. How do I know what to follow up with?
And so then I don't.
Like that.
I leave with assumptions or like not specifics, right? It's just easier to get out of it. That. I just need to get out. We're all
and I think I was going to say. I do see a lot of people go, well, I got uncomfortable, so I just said, okay, I'll call you, and then off you go. But I do, again, this is coming back to the theme of this whole episode, which is you're designing each step and working through each step going, okay, where's the buyer now? What do they need now? Even down to the point of them saying, I need you to text me in 3 weeks after I get back from vacation, and then we are ready to have a decision, or whatever it might be. Like, it's all of it's down to that. If you just keep going, okay, where's the buyer? What do they need? How can I help them move to the next place? I love that.
That's what's so critical. How do I support them in getting to the decision and not leaving them in indecision, right? I think that's like the most cruel thing we could do as a financial advisor is have these things, give people hope that whatever can be addressed, and then leave them on their own device to never make a decision, right?
Yes.
It's cruel.
Yeah. I agree. I think, and it gets back to, again, just kind of an overall theme that I try to convey to advisors is you're in the business, you're serving, you're not selling, right? Like, you're ultimately in service of them and helping them get what they need. And hopefully it's with you, but sometimes it isn't. But you need to, I love how you say, get them out of uncertainty or get them out of indecision, because that causes great strain on everyone around, the advisor, the clients, everyone, because everyone's sitting in that purgatory of like, well, what I like to call it prospect purgatory.
Aww.
Are we going somewhere? Are we not going somewhere? Like, what's happening? And
they
don't want to tell you if they don't want to work with you. You're tired of bugging them and following up. What do we do? And so I love keep the buyer in mind, build the process around that, and have all of your, again, when you get clear on that, you can back it all the way back to the marketing. What's the first way they find out about you? Is that lining up to what they will experience when they come in the door? And that's really where it all comes together.
Mm-hmm. Something you said I think is so powerful is about, like, this is about serving. And the greatest service we can give them at the beginning is to help them make this first important decision. Because until they make that decision, we cannot legally help them with advice, right? Like, it's
right.
And so, Joe Morgan, an advisor, said years ago, he goes, the biggest thing that I learned is that I don't have to be someone different when I'm in the selling process than I am when I'm an advisor. It's really where I first get to serve.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's great. I think that's the perfect place to wrap today's conversation. This has been so fun, Nancy. I'm glad we finally got this on the calendar. For goodness sakes, we've been following each other around at conferences for a couple of years now. So luckily, got on this calendar, really excited. If advisors who are listening want to find out more about you and your work, where can they go? And how can they connect with you?
Okay. Our website is www.salesproinsider.com. And, I also connect with me on LinkedIn, if you want to just send me an email, nancy@salesproinsider.com. So I do offer 30-minute sales strategy coaching free for the first one, working on a specific topic, situation, or challenge regarding sales. And it's a great way for you to see what it's like to have a sales coach, but it's no pitch, no pressure. If you decide you want to, like this is my process, right? If you decide,
Yes.
hey, I do want to see about working here, what are your services? Then we would schedule another conversation and really start the sales process, right? This is really about, getting some immediate help and, see what it's like to work with somebody who can objectively look at your situation.
That's great. And I would say you certainly bring the experience to the table, and advisors would really benefit from that. And we'll have all of that in the show notes. So if you need the links or the email or any of that, you can look there. And as always, I want to thank all of our listeners for joining on Full Advisor Coaching, the podcast. And if this episode resonated with you, please share it with a colleague who may be wondering, why are they having all these great conversations, but they aren't turning into clients? There could be small changes, big changes you can make. I know it's a frustration that happens out there, so please share the episode. And if I can be of help to you at all, as always, you can find me at fulladvisorcoaching.com. Click the request a call button in the upper right-hand corner or message me over on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to connect. Thank you so much for joining me today, Nancy.
Thank you, Kristin.
And thank you to everyone who's listening. Until next time, go out, make it a great day.
Thank you for tuning in to Full Advisor Coaching, the podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please hit the follow button so you'll never miss an episode. To learn more about how you can become a part of the Full Advisor community, visit fulladvisorcoaching.com. Remember, stay connected and get notified as soon as brand new episodes release. Click the follow button now. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Kristin Harrod or Full Advisor Coaching.